Hi, I'm Andrew McIntosh, and I'm going to speak briefly about working with 23andMe. 23andMe have been working with the PGC Major Depressive Disorder Working Group for a number of years, and we've published 2 GWAS studies with them so far, and we're planning a third, and other secondary analysis proposals are likely to follow. So I want to answer the following questions in the next few minutes. Who are 23andMe? What do they offer consumers? Because I think it gives a perspective that's useful for people that want to use their data. I'm going to give my opinion on what sort of collaborations they might be looking for, and just a very brief guide on how you apply for their data and what sort of things it might be helpful to include. So starting at the beginning, who are 23andMe? Well, they're a private company based in Sunnyvale, California, and they were the first to offer autosomal DNA testing for Ancestry from 2007. They provide the service direct to consumers. Consumers pay a fee, and the results are returned. And it was said to be Times Invention of the Year in 2008. And you can see a picture of where they're located in the bottom image. So what do 23andMe offer consumers? Well, first of all, you complete a web-based registration and payment, and a saliva kit is sent directly to you, which you promptly deposit your saliva into, reseal and dispatch back in the box. You register the kit to your account when you receive it, or alternatively you can give it to friends or family for them to register to their accounts, and they'll then be able to get the genetic testing from 23andMe without having to pay for the product, whereas because you will have already paid for it. And then you or they return the kit in the post, and you will wait for feedback. You'll get feedback from 23andMe at several stages in the process, letting you know whether the sample's been received, whether it's been genotyped, and whether the results are all available for you to view. The data that's provided includes the base product is an Ancestry report that tells you about your genetic similarity to people in various regions of the world. You can also opt in to receive a health and Ancestry product. The health reports that will be provided to you are you opt in individually to them. So you could, for example, opt out of receiving information about your risk of Alzheimer's disease if you wished. And there's a premium service including health and Ancestry data. You can, if you provide permission and your family member provides permission, you can link together 2 profiles. So for example, I've done this myself, and my profile is linked to that of my daughter. You can also, by going through your profile, download your raw GWAS data. There's a download link there, and you can download it to your computer wherever you are. And you can provide that for other studies. So for example, I've participated in a study called Corona Genes, which is an Edinburgh-based study where you upload your 23andMe file. And you can upload your file to other portals, such as ones that provide polygenic profiling information to people who want it. The Ancestry information is, the report looks as follows. I haven't shown mine because mine shows that I'm basically from around the Aberdeen area of Scotland, and this one I thought was more interesting and was provided by 23andMe for the purposes of this talk, about an individual who shows the greatest genetic similarity to people within a particular region of India. And it's broken down into various other regions in and around their place of birth, and there's information provided on their genetic similarity to people within those regions. The health predisposition report gives you information on known genetic causes of disease, and you see a number of these listed on the left-hand side, the conditions with which they're associated. And I've clicked on my own report here to say that to give an example of the test for the ApoE gene. In this case, there were no variants detected, but whether you do or whether you don't have a variant detected, you can click on the video and it gives an explanation of what it means to have that test result. You also get perhaps more perhaps not so health relevant information. So this is the taste preference test. You enter in, they will provide you with a feed report on whether you're likely to like sweet or salty food. So, and it provides some breakdown of the information there. You also get asked some of these questions on questionnaires if you want to participate in their research program that I'll come on to in a moment. Family-based information. So I provided a kit to my daughter, and it turns out 23andMe were able to confirm that she was my daughter, and we linked our profiles together. So there you go. It also identifies a number of more distant relationships with people from around the world. So that's what 23andMe provided the consumer. What relevance does this have for research? Well, 23andMe are keen on participating in research projects, and quite a lot of their web pages are related to their research activities. I'm going to show a couple here now. So here it tells you a few statistics about their participation in research, about 4 million people having participated, and providing information on more than 1,500 genetic discoveries. It also mentions a therapeutics team. I'm not sure what that is. They list their scientific publications on the website, and I think this one is particularly instructive. They're clearly interested in genetic studies of impulsiveness and association with drug use. For the major depressive disorder working group, they're also clearly interested in the genetics of depression, and we have published with them in February of 2019. They included a blog post on their website, and in January 2019 there was a blog post about the genetics of being a morning person. They're clearly very interested in well-being and in psychiatric traits, and in the traits that are associated with those conditions. So what sort of psychiatric phenotyping do they do? Well, I think none of it is very detailed. None of the stuff that's collected, none of the information that's collected on most participants it goes into a lot of depth, but it does enable the study and for useful information to be provided about the following conditions. So the questions in the survey include a screener. Have you ever been diagnosed or treated for any of the following conditions? So you answer yes or no to this, and if you answer no, then your questionnaire advances and you're not asked any further questions about those particular conditions. But these are examples from questions that I've previously filled in. Have you ever been diagnosed with or treated for bipolar disorder or manic depression? Have you been diagnosed or treated for depression? Have you been diagnosed or treated for an eating disorder? Have you been treated or diagnosed for anxiety? And specifically, they ask about generalized anxiety disorder. I've spoken to the leads for the OCD working group, and there are also questions about obsessive compulsive disorder that are included for research participants in 23andMe now. And if you want to obtain information from them, what you're asking for are GWAS summary statistics. And you go to this website here, and there is a collaboration form, which I'll show on the next page. On the web page, though, it makes it clear that certain types of collaborations are of interest to 23andMe. So they're seeking collaborations with people who have complementary data sets, expertise, or analysis methods. And topics might include GWAS to discover new associations, development of a new method, polygenic risk model developments, evaluation of a collaborator's polygenic risk model. And in my experience, if you're looking to evaluate another model or replicate previously reported genetic findings on a smaller subset, so you're not looking genome-wide, those tend to proceed more quickly, and they can turn them around within a number of weeks. The gene by environment interaction studies are also listed on their website as being something that they're interested in. And genetic research on behalf of underrepresented groups, I think, is relatively new, and is data that's been provided to us by 23andMe for the depression working group includes diverse ancestries in addition to European. So the collaboration form is linked from the 23andMe webpage, and a Google search you'll find this quite easily. So if you just look for research innovation collaborations, the application form will be open in October. It may even be open today, but it wasn't open at the time of recording. And it's quite simple, and you can fill it in I think well under half an hour. My advice for applicants seeking to work with 23andMe are that I don't think 23andMe have unlimited research staff and resources to help us. So I think that keeping the request to what you absolutely need rather than what you would like, I think will help it get a positive hearing. Applications are often refused, though. So I have spoken to many people in the PGC who've applied for data, and their application has been refused. And I think in some cases that's because they've asked for multiple phenotypes. And I think that the workload for 23andMe increases in proportion, or maybe faster than in proportion, to the number of phenotypes that you request. If you're successful, that's by no means the end of the matter. You will. What will happen next is a schedule of work will be drafted that will include the names of people and the institutions, and it will need to be signed off by your legal departments. There'll also be some security paperwork to complete, which is quite detailed. At the end of this process, if you can agree, and in my limited experience, the agreement has not been problematic, your institution will sign a contract, and they will sign a contract that names all of the other institutions. And I think it's beneficial if you can name as few institutions as you need. And one recent insight has been we included on the PGC MDD group contract 5 institutions, and we wanted to add additional people. Now, if we wanted to add additional people, we'd need to go back and we'd need to add their institutions, and 23andMe would need to agree with that. And I think it may even need to be go back through all the other centres and all the other legal teams. And life is short, and nobody really wants to do that if they don't have to. And so one useful thing that 23andMe have done recently is to say that if the data is on LISA, on the Surf-Sarah cluster, and that site has been approved, they will allow researchers to come in from other institutions and access the data there if need be. They want to know who those researchers are and where they're from, but we haven't so far had to go a full rejigging and amendment to the schedule of work and security paperwork if people are only using it on LISA, which I think is a big advantage. You will receive at the end of this, and our last application to 23andMe took many months to resolve. The previous one was much shorter, and I think that was largely due to the number of partners that we had on each of those applications. You'll receive a large sample GWAS summary statistic file. It's 23andMe's own file format. There are tools out there for using it, however. It'll include, and it'll be provided via the Box online file sharing system, a detailed QC report and the standard outputs that you would expect from any GWAS. It'll also include information on your contact person for inquiries, although I've found that they include so much information that most of your inquiries will in fact be covered by information that's already available to you. You'll get, and I've said this already, approval to share data with others, but it's very limited according to the terms of the schedule of work. If you want to share it with people on LISA, you'll need to email and get permission from 23andMe. If you want access to full sum stats, they will need to be, and to download them for your own purposes locally, you'll need to get confirmation of contracting from your legal offices and from 23andMe. So I think it's obvious that there are disadvantages and advantages of working with 23andMe. In my view, for the depression working group, the advantages have grossly outweighed the disadvantages. And the advantages are, of course, sample size and the power that will give you. The fact that there's now multi-ancestry data is extremely exciting. We're working in an environment where the needs to address the disparities and availability of GWAS data across ancestries is becoming ever more obvious. It's a very consistent format, and there's support if you need it. And I think, and I assume that over time, that the richer data sets will become available. So I think that they're in informal conversations with people who work with 23andMe and those at 23andMe. It seems that multi-trait proposals, I think, are more likely to succeed in future. There are also a number of trios in 23andMe, because there are people, the families like my own, that have participated, where multiple people have participated. And I think in future that data may become available, and if it did, that would be very interesting, I think. The disadvantages are, and many of these haven't yet been shown to my knowledge. So some of these are anecdotal, but the first is that it's a paid-for service, and it's for people with disposable income. And I doubt that those people are typical of the population who we're wanting to serve, the people who are in greatest clinical need. It's a low-depth phenotype, so for depression, it's one or two questions, one filter, one screen, and then it asks you if you've ever been diagnosed with depression or not. Now, I think we're becoming increasingly aware that self-declared depression, the genetic architecture of self-declared depression, is not the same as the genetic architecture of SCIDS diagnosed depression with a trained psychiatrist or psychologist. So, and if you want to go and see discussion and data on that, you could go to Narkai's paper in Nature Genetics earlier this year. I think that you're also not going to be able to get access to share the data on all participants. So even if you do a GWAS meta-analysis with 23andMe and PGC cohorts, we would normally have expected to be able to share the summary statistics across all SNPs publicly on the PGC website. And you should be aware that we now can't do that. If we include 23andMe, data sharing is only going to be possible for a maximum of 10,000 SNPs in the meta-analysis. So most people provide a file that includes no 23andMe, as well as providing a file which is not publicly available, but is available upon receipt of permission from 23andMe that will allow you to share other data with your collaborators. And we share the 23andMe summary statistics with our collaborators, but only after they have emailed and given their permission. Some people, I think, feel that goes against some of the principles of the PGC of making data openly available, but I make no judgment here. I think it's for each group to decide for themselves. You won't obviously know whether you've got overlapping samples. So in some cases, it's possible to identify overlapping samples, especially when studies participate and provide raw genotype data. You won't be able to do that here. You won't be able to provide the checksums to 23andMe, and I don't think 23andMe will make that available to you. So there will be some overlap there, and we don't know what the size of that is at the moment. So you will also have to seek approval for submissions, and you will get, and if you want to make a conference presentation using their data, you'll be expected to seek approval for that also. They provide the approval very quickly. So I think that's that. So I think that's covered everything I wanted to say. Further sources of information are available from the 23andMe website and collaboration portal, which will be open later this month, if not now. There are many PGC investigators, and just Googling PGC and 23andMe, you'll quickly identify which papers have used 23andMe data. So you can look at the publications and you can approach the investigators there. I've listed some investigators who are involved on this slide here. So Mark Adams, whose picture is shown there, who's also helped me with this presentation. Catherine Lewis, David Howard, Jerome Breen, Danielle, Carolina Kuchenbacher, and Naomi Ray have all worked in there. I'm sure they wouldn't mind receiving an email from you about this if you were looking for advice. People at 23andMe include Liz Noblin and Aaron, and I found them both to be extremely helpful. So thank you very much for listening, and if you want to get in contact with me to discuss any of the material presented here, please do so. Thank you.